And I've been lucky enough to work on some of the coolest new projects that are coming out of the region, including one that I am really excited to talk about today. The project is the Katsoe. It's the first ever Emirati animated musical feature film. If you've ever been curious about how your favorite animated movies get made, then you're in the right place. Today's talk is a special one because we're not just diving into the animation as a genre, we're also looking at it as a brand new space for Emirati storytelling. And no one's been more central to making that happen than our guest today, Fadel Al-Meheri, filmmaker, director, and creative force behind Katsoe.
Thank you.
At Imagination, we're so proud of this film. Sure, it's a fun, family-friendly adventure about stray cats. It celebrates our streets, our buildings, our memories, and most importantly, it captures the spirit of who we are. Through animation, we found a way to tell a story that feels completely local, but can reach audiences all around the world. So today we're going to dig into how Katsoe came to life, how telling stories through a cultural lens can make them even more powerful. Please help me give a warm welcome to the man who brought the story to life, Fadel Al-Meheri.
Thank you, Muhammad.
Fadel, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us more about this project? Where did the idea of Katsoe come from?
So basically, the project started with an idea. I wanted to make a pilot episode, television pilot episode, about an autistic guy whose partner was a street cat. And it just started haunting me to write something for television because I wanted to change whatever we were seeing in Ramadan. I wanted to think out of the box. I wanted to come up with an idea. But back then, when I wanted to translate that idea into reality, it was practically impossible for me. And if I wanted to bring a cat, explore the idea of either its mouth is mimicking some sound or put some 3D effects on it, you either do it 100% or not. So I just put that idea aside. I was like, okay, no matter. But the cat character stayed with me. It's like I wanted to explore more about the street cats of Abu Dhabi with Chiyuha. Then something interesting happened is some buildings and some landmarks in Abu Dhabi started disappearing. And to me, as a storyteller or filmmaker, I wanted to commemorate that. I wanted to document that. I didn't know what to do. So just basically one night I thought, how about I bring those two ideas together? How about if that cat is a street cat living in Abu Dhabi and is going through troubles of trying to survive in these places that keeps changing every now and then. فخلاص by and by started snowballing itself. It really started with a cat, then surprisingly with the landmarks. بعدين the whole mesh started and developed into Katsoe.
So actually, Katsoe was one of the first projects that sort of came across my desk at Imagination, and something that really spoke to me was the fact that you see these like Abu Dhabi landmarks. Like, I'm not from Abu Dhabi, I'm from Dubai. And there are like history to these landmarks that I've never seen. I remember going through the storyboards with you and being like, Fadel, what's this like falcon on a crane? What's this water fountain? Can I go see it? And I remember you just being like, oh, like these things don't exist anymore. So that's something like that really touched me about the project itself and why I think us as Imagination really wanted to work on this. So I wanted to ask you, why was it important for you to capture these places, to keep them alive through the movie?
It's personally, it's like something that I feel connected to. If you ask me like to pull a piece of paper now and write something, I'll write something about my childhood. I'll write something that touches me. I'll write something what I'm thinking of, what I miss. One of the main things that I really miss about Abu Dhabi is the 90s Abu Dhabi that I grew up in. Then basically wherever you go now, it's no longer there. You can hardly find anything that goes back to the 90s. I'm talking about places that we hang out, whether it was an arcade place, whether it was the volcano fountain, whether it was the market. ف it's something inside me. It's like an instinct. We call it يعني بالهموم هم شايلني يعني. I wanted to translate that. I wanted to translate that, but in a creative way, in a story, and basically keep these memories living. That's the whole idea. It's like I wanted to keep these memories living because whenever I shared even an image with anyone who was or witnessed those locations, there was a reaction. There was something that they felt when they see the volcano fountain or when they see the Corniche or when they see all these places. I found some similarities with the people that, okay, we are all coming from the same place. We all feel the same way. Why don't I just take the lead and go ahead with that? And that's the whole idea. It's personal. It's something that I wanted to share. And the bigger goal of it is to keep those memories living.
100%. Something that sort of an advice I'd like to give to young filmmakers or young writers. I receive a lot, or we at Imagination receive a lot of scripts and a lot of stories that are set around locations such as the Louvre, such as different landmarks around the UAE, like Burj Khalifa, or like different prominent locations. But what I find that is lacking from a lot of submissions that we receive, that this is something that drew me to Katsaway, is that your story was shaped around a landmark. The landmark was more than just a location, more than a set dressing. It had a story, it had a world, it had a universe. And I kind of wish that more writers and more sort of directors approach their locations and their sets in that sort of focus. I've told you this, like the water tank, which we feature heavily in our movie. I used to drive past it on my commute home every single day. Every single day, it always just sat in my blind spot. And I'm sure a lot of you people here on your drives home, you'll see buildings, you'll see landmarks that just sit in your blind spot. It's never really like something you think about. But it wasn't until we started production on this that I really started to see it. That I was like, oh my God, that's the water tank. I see it. I'm like, at that point, I've been living here for 3 years. Every single day, and I'm like, I just saw this. Like, that's insane. And then it changed how I view landmarks around Abu Dhabi. It changed sort of the perspective. Now I'm thinking about the people that live there, the animals that might sort of shelter there. And I think that's an important part of why I value Katsaway so much. So my next question here is, how did you draw on the Emirati culture and the characters, the visuals, or the themes?
So the script has characters, obviously, and those characters I drew from people who were around me in terms of behaviors, just to try to differentiate between the different characters that I have in the movie and based on what their functions is in the story. The thing that really resonated with me in Katsaway or in the script is I wanted to reflect Abu Dhabi's society. But what I mean by that is the different dialects that the city has, different nationalities with different dialects. And that is, to me, what the truth of Abu Dhabi society is. It's the fabric of Abu Dhabi.
Especially in this sort of day and age where we have a lot of the cartoons and the animated shows that we show our children or show our nieces or nephews, everyone sort of just watches it in the English language. I feel like it's become the lazy sort of decision for a lot of parents. You have such a diverse cast of voice actors. What was the thought process behind including that?
So first, I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to go back and see what were the most used dialects in Abu Dhabi, what were the most nationalities that lived here in the city. And based on that, I took those many dialects that we have in Abu Dhabi and started to test with them, with the characters. Most of the characters that I have in my movie are cats. We have a mouse and a lizard. But it's how I wanted to write this equation of showing the tolerance that we have in Abu Dhabi, showing how this society has this unique fabric to it. It's based on the character's behavior is what I did in choosing the dialects. I really did it fast, honestly. Like I even had a deadline to do that, and I was like, "Khalas, okay. I need to pick and choose." And based on my like deep instinct, I went with khalas. This guy will talk Lebanese. This guy will talk Emirati. Khalas. I just went with the character behaviors and everything, and I was like, if this is what I feel, then let me go with that.
I remember during the sort of the casting session and our first voice recording sessions, we always sat with our voice actors from different nationalities, and we were always like, okay, what do you think this character is missing? What do you think we should bring to our story? What is something that we're neglecting? At the end of the day, we're Emiratis, so we don't know the full sort of advantage of what it's like being an Egyptian, what's it like being a Lebanese in Abu Dhabi. And again, that's one of my favorite things, and I feel like we'll have a product soon, inshallah, that will be able to speak to the diverse audience that is the UAE. We're not just Emiratis, we are a collection of multinational individuals living here.
And not that only, Mohammed, also avoiding stereotypes, which is something that we as viewers didn't want to do, is any character that we saw, we don't want it to lean into a specific stereotype that...
Well, we have a little bit of stereotypes.
That's funny and comic stereotypes.
We try to keep it light.
Not hurtful.
Exactly. Did you consult with artists, architects, or cultural historians to bring the authenticity to the screen?
I think when I started to look through the backgrounds of the locations in the script, I went through the municipality of Abu Dhabi. I met people there because most of the story takes place, like you said, it's in the water tank area and Khaldiyah, but other parts of it takes place in the old Corniche. And the municipality was a reference for me to go back and ask about even why did they demolish the volcano fountain. So it wasn't about just researching, it's about the why this thing happened, why are there changes that happened. So this is what I took from the Abu Dhabi municipality. Abu Dhabi TV, I went in to fish out some old footage, nostalgic footage, which gets leaked every now and then in the social media. And this gave me a very good reference on not even the locations, it's the clothes, the attire back then, because this is something that I didn't have in my mind is, oh, okay, they wore different kandoras, or they wore different abayas, or they wore, fashion, it was different back then. So I wanted also to reflect that in the story. So those two places were mostly my sources, and they were my inspirations. Meeting people that went back, I really wanted to meet the person who drew the architecture of the volcano fountain, but I heard that he already left the country, khalas, because to me that was not only a piece of history that was in the Corniche, it would give another branch to the film itself. I just didn't want to tell a story about Abu Dhabi. I wanted even to document some of the things while I'm making the film.
You see, research is it's the most vital aspect of sort of storytelling. You want to make sure that especially when it comes to animation, where animation is sort of so reliant on exaggeration, on sort of the dramatization of things, you want to make sure that you're telling an authentic story. And I think the landmarks that you highlighted, I remember talking to a lot of Emiratis who were around in the 90s and the early 2000s that look fondly upon the landmarks that we're bringing back, that we're highlighting, that we're like, oh, I remember when I was a kid that, our kids used to try to hang off the falcon on the crane and, all these sort of things. And it's heartwarming to hear that, we were able to at least bring part of those memories back. So, as we all know, animation is a whole different beast of a production process. It's completely different to the live action process. It's its own world, it has its own challenges, its own pace and its own magic in a sense. Can you take us behind the scenes a little? What was the animation process like for Katsue, and how different was it from what people might expect compared to live action?
So live action movies usually like cast first, and then you can make some rehearsals, test shoots. Sometimes I do, and then you go on and do the actual, or what they call the principal photography. In animation, it's like the opposite. The first thing you do is that you record the whole movie, which to me was like, okay, I need to go and jump into the heart of the film at the very first stage. فخلاص, whatever will happen after recording the actors is just applying in and executing whatever we're doing in those first phase.
Basically, what we do in animation that some filmmakers have sort of started adapting into their pipeline and their process, which is storyboarding. In animation, storyboarding is the most important part. It's the thing that shapes your entire movie. Without a storyboard, there's no pace. While a script is obviously just as important as a storyboard. Storyboard is a visual, little quick drawings that will set the pace, set the tone to what you're doing. How was it like storyboarding for you, as someone who like produced a short or like managing a storyboard session?
So it went through two phases, honestly, because the first phase I wanted just to test in the idea of making this script that I have into animation. To me, that was a very daring move, is to go in and take my story and turn it into an animation film. So I wanted to at least visualize what I'm seeing. So what I did first is concept art drawings, some visualizations of some different scenes that we have in the movie.
But Fadl, you also took that further. You did more than storyboards. You did entire
teaser, yeah.
Not just the teaser, but also the clay models that you created.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, what I did is that was basically like a technique to market the story more. But what I did is, okay, how about I take it a step further? I wanted to take part in the Abu Dhabi book fairs. I took like advantage of the Abu Dhabi book fairs, not only to showcase my characters, which like you said were clay models that I presented here, but even to get some feedback from the audience about the volcano fountain, about the story, about even some of the characters. We had basic names in the beginning for the characters, and people came to me as like, why are you calling this? Why are you calling this? They started like to give me some notes which were useful for me that I applied even for my film, changed even my script, because it was like in the first draft. After that, it was like, khalas, how do I want to take it a step further and invest from my own pocket money, a teaser, just to see, will I be able to pull that? And you can see it from the first shot. It's the volcano fountain shot. Can I bring back to life? Once I saw that, it's like, khalas, let me go in all the way.
What challenges should, let's say, any future animators or people who want to produce an animation, what challenges should they expect in creating a movie, and what kept you going?
So basically, everybody knows the animation film takes a long time in the making. Coming from a filmmaking background, which is real life filmmaking, it's, I think, one of the challenges or one of the things that maybe I wanted to pass to directors who will take that route is to have some patience in terms of making the film. Because what I learned through that lengthy process that we have at making Katsue is you cannot just go and reshoot, which is something that we take for granted in films. It's like, khalas, if we've seen the first draft, I was like, this scene doesn't really sit well. Khalas, let's go in and take a 3-day shoot, emergency shots we call them, and we shoot the movie, or we shoot these sequences or clips again and go back and fix it in editing. Not like that. Totally opposite in animation. If you think of reshooting or, reanimating a movie or a clip, it takes a hell lot of time just to make that. So that's one, is proper planning. Something that I learned is like you have to proper plan everything so that to avoid these hiccups. Another thing is to maybe push the limits in terms of imagination and creativity. Is that if you're making an animation film, this is one of the notes that I got on Katsue. They're like, why did you make Abu Dhabi as is, as you see it? Ya akhi, make it from the point of view of cats. Exaggerate the buildings, ya akhi, do different colors. It's a good note, but again, this is where I fall as a writer versus directors. Like, لا خلاص, it's my vision, it's my Abu Dhabi. I wanted to show it as it is. Maybe later or maybe in another film I will do that. But if I would pass that note, I would pass it to any person who will work on an animation film. It's like, be creative in reconstructing something that you think is, don't show it as it is. Yani, push the borders, push the limits شوي, be creative about it.
But of course, you always want to stay honest and true to what something is. Something I've learned as an animator myself is that the detail and the sort of concentration that you really need with animation. With the live action, when you're setting up a stage, you're setting up your actors, you're setting up your light, and you're like, okay, good. And you have maybe someone in the set dressing team that will set dress. In animation, it's its own other beast. You have to think about every detail, every movement, every character that moves, that sort of, you have to create everything from scratch. So for that, it's a beast. You have to be on your game 100% of the time, and I think that was one of our main sort of hardships that we overcame while working on this movie. So my next question is, music plays an important part in the Cat's Way storytelling. Can you walk us through how that decision came to be? And what made you want to turn this into a musical?
After I've written the third draft of the script, I pass it on to get some notes. One of the notes that I got is that the characters' highlights, which is their breaking points or their highest points, isn't translated as it's supposed to be. So I took the liberty to say, okay, I either rewrite those scenes again, or I have to add something into the film that will take that to the next level. So during that time, I saw the triplets of Belleville, the animation. I was like, I've learned more about those three old women while they're singing in Paris. I was like, what if I took that script into that next level and made it into a musical script? What if I took those high and low points of the characters and turned them into songs? And this is when I started to explore the idea of getting a music department in our project and exploring that, which opened a whole can of worms for me. And there was songwriters were involved and music supervisors, et cetera, and it's just list goes on and on and on for that. And I thought it was just about, خلاص, okay, let me just add some poetry here about what this cat feels. No, totally not that at all. So this is how this script was made. When I told you, it just snowballed itself. I think musically, this is how it started. It just started as a note that I wanted to fix and just opened up into a whole different level, which took the movie from making it into a musical animation rather than just an animation film.
Lovely. So we've all grown up watching cartoons and anime from a young age, especially here in the Middle East. Why do you think animation resonates with so many people in our region?
Especially in our region, because we grew up, that was a daily part of our lives. 4 p.m., it was very known here, all over the UAE, maybe in the GCC also. It's cartoon time. This is when we used to watch cartoons. And if you think of it, it really helped constructed our psyche in terms of understanding what art is, what the world is, what storytelling is. And growing up watching these different Japanese and some even Russian productions of animation that used to be in those tiny TV sets that we have back home. That was an escape for us. That was our entertainment value. That was our Netflix. 1 hour. It's not like today, you know? So we really like took liberty in taking this 1 hour to watch this amazing stories that told us about different cultures. And one thing that really resonated with me was that years later, there was a famous exhibition that took part here in Abu Dhabi. And I was responsible for meeting or interviewing more than 80 artists from the Emirates, taking it from the first artist who ever drew a painting to the amateur who just started. And one question that was my responsibility to ask them is, where did you get your inspiration from in art? Everybody, like 98% of the artists said the first thing that really affected us to go into art were cartoons. The cartoons that we watched when we were growing up. This is when I was like, we're all the same. We all feel the same way towards the cartoons.
I think something that's different to the young audiences in the UAE that differs with a lot of like American and British culture is that where Americans and British people will watch American cartoons. In the UAE, a lot of our upbringing was focused on Japanese anime, which, you know, when you're young, you can't tell the difference between what's American. Everything is dubbed, everything is its own thing, right? But I find that so many adults to this day still talk about Ayyam al-Taybin, Spacetoon, and those big social networks that provided us with a lot of Japanese anime. They dubbed it for us. They gave us some of the most amazing songs, which I think sometimes is a big influence on the decision that made us turn Cats Away into a musical, as well as like these are adults in their 30s and their 40s who I know, or I'll be with my friends in their car and they'll still be playing some of the Spacetoon songs and they still think fondly of those times. And that's something I feel like you only have with animation that you don't necessarily can approach with live actions. And these are the same adults that will still go to a cartoon sing-along at the age of 40, which is surprising. Like I had one of my coworkers recently just come up to me. He's like, "Oh, are you going to the Rush Hour concert?" And I'm like, "Aren't we too old for this?" And he was like, "No, like I want to relive my childhood." So, you know, animation has a big impact in the UAE, especially because of sort of what we had available to us, what we consumed at a young age. Something you need to remember that film isn't just about entertainment. It's part of the cultural record. It reflects time, a place, and people in a way that's accessible to kids, adults, and even international audiences. Cartoons will cross borders. Anime and animation crosses borders a lot easier than any live action would ever. When people see a live action, they see actors, they see ethnicity, they see where someone's from. Versus in a cartoon, you see like an amalgamation of a human or like a cat or a lion, sort of anything. And it's easier for us as a viewer and even as creators to put ourselves into those shoes, into who these characters are without race being a subject. And that's why I think animation is sort of the way of the future. So thank you so much, Fadl.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you.
Coming on with us tonight. I was wondering if we have any questions from the audience.
I just had a question. From what I understood, Cats Away is a return to 2D animation versus what is currently on trend, 3D animation. Why did you choose 2D? And do you think it will resonate well with younger audiences now as it did back in the 90s?
Very good question. Again, going back to our discussion about Abu Dhabi. When I explored the 3D aspect of making Abu Dhabi, I thought the shapes and the colors blended in didn't give justice, honestly, to Abu Dhabi. And number two, to the triplets of Belleville, again, gave me the idea of how Paris looked in hand-drawn animation. So that was, to me, khalas. I was like, I'm going with 2D animation. Whether it will resonate with the younger audience, I didn't really think of it back then, because all what I was thinking is that my vision, just to pull it out of my head and put it on paper. And to me, animation, just like Muhammad now said, it's universal. No matter what you do or what you work on, it will resonate if you have a good story.
From our end at Imagination, the reason we chose 2D over 3D was 2D, especially in this day and age, is a bit of a dying form. A lot of animators have sort of discarded the 2D style and the hand-drawn style for what's cheaper, what's easier. And then something that I feel like adds a nice nuance to our stories, that because we're talking about the past, because we're highlighting these landmarks, the history of Abu Dhabi, the 2D adds a little bit of grit to it. It adds a little bit of history. It adds a little bit of time. It frames it into what it could be. So that's why we wanted, or that's why for us, that's what spoke to us about the 2D. Anybody else?
Hi. So you mentioned that the US or Japan are very famous with animation, and basically the UAE is not. How easy was it to find the resources and the manpower to do this animation here in the UAE? And do you think there's a potential for growth over there, or what do you think about that?
It wasn't really easy, but that was the challenge by itself. Is once we said we wanted to do this animation, what we wanted to do is to look for the dream team, which to me was the hardest thing to do. There wasn't a lot of skills that we basically found here, but what we tried to do is, as much as possible, try to minimize the number of people that we rely on in terms of character development, background artists, music, and all these important elements of making the project. We were keen in the beginning to have them here in Abu Dhabi. And that's what we tried to do throughout the process, is the key people or the different departments that we had in this project. We wanted it to be homegrown or from Abu Dhabi. Can this continue? It's just the question of cinema itself, is that we are still trying to build the wheel for this industry to take its motion in a normal sense. And the way I look at it personally, from my point of view, is if this is how it starts here, with all the hardships, then be it. Let's do it. Let's take the challenge, and inshallah we'll be up for it, whether this thing will continue or not.
Especially when it comes to it, I do agree that finding talent here is hard, but especially something we tried to focus on was we had a lot of young Emirati members in our PA team and our sort of storyboard team that came and provided, and we wanted to give that exposure and that sort of training to be able to teach the next generation. It's only through creating animation and only through working on it can we actually like build an ecosystem for it someday.
Hey, why did we choose to use cats in the movie?
I wouldn't say they were in my blind spot, but again, going back to the concept, the idea was to do a pilot episode between an autistic kid having difficulty trying to communicate with people, but finding it his escape in the street cat. And it happened to me when I was writing one night in my sort of garage. I had a street cat that wanted to shelter from the rain. And I was like, "Khalas, okay, if this is an accident, this is like a very fun accident, let me khalas put that cat to be that character's friend." And it went on, and khalas, since then I've been cursed with watching street cats every day. It's insane.
So thank you so much, Fadl, for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you in theaters once we release, inshallah. Thank you so much.